Through the grainy analog feed of his FPV goggles, the world was a blur of sea and sky. The target was getting closer, a steel ladderwork monster rising from the black water. He could see its primary weapon rotating with hypnotic, deadly rhythm. He could see the tiny figures of soldiers moving on its decks, completely unaware. In a concealed bunker, 35 kilometers from that steel island, an SBU operator with the call sign Sokil took a steadying breath. The voice in his headset was calm, but the order was absolute. Send it. At 8:30 in the morning on May 19, 2025, a mission to reclaim the Black Sea began with a single decisive command. Within seconds, a Ukrainian-built quadcopter drone lifted into the air. Strapped to its belly was a 3-kilogram package of high explosives. Its mission, a 35-kilometer journey across open water to eliminate one of Russia's most critical surveillance assets. Sokil, the pilot, was now one with the machine. Strapped into his VR-style goggles, he saw what the drone saw, felt every gust of wind, every change in altitude. This was the intimate, terrifying reality of FPV combat. The drone itself was a marvel of battlefield ingenuity. Just days earlier, it was a standard 10-inch racing frame built from Chinese components in a Kyiv workshop. Now it was a guided missile costing less than $500. The target's coordinates were already locked into his ground control system, Boyko Tower Alpha, a gas platform seized by Russia, now bristling with military hardware. And sitting at its highest point, the prize, a NEVA radar installation. This wasn't just any radar. It was the electronic eye that had tormented Ukrainian forces for months. Its 45-kilometer detection range created a no-go zone, hamstringing naval drones, helicopters, and low-flying aircraft. Taking it out wouldn't just be a victory, it would be liberation. It would punch a hole in Russia's defenses, allowing Ukraine to move freely in its own waters. The drone's 4 brushless motors screamed, spinning up to 20,000 RPM. Sokil initiated takeoff from an improvised launch pad hidden amongst coastal reeds. The flight plan was a masterclass in stealth. A direct line to the target was suicide. Instead, the drone would execute a carefully choreographed zigzag pattern. It flew low, under 50 meters, staying beneath the sweeping gaze of enemy radar. At a steady 65 kilometers per hour, the 35-kilometer journey would stretch to just over 45 agonizing minutes. Each minute was a risk. Each kilometer brought the drone closer to enemy territory and potential electronic countermeasures. But the analog video transmission of FPV systems is notoriously difficult to jam. That was the bet. Through Sokil's goggles, the Black Sea stretched out below, a vast, indifferent expanse. In the distance, the Boyko Tower solidified from a smudge on the horizon into a clear and present threat. A steel fortress, crewed by an enemy that had no idea what was screaming towards them from the waves. At 9:15 a.m., the drone crested its final wave. The Boyko Tower platform filled Sokil's entire field of view. It rose a stark 40 meters above the sea. And there it was, the NEVA radar system methodically sweeping the horizon. This was a legacy of the Soviet Union, a K-band system operating at 35 gigahertz. It was one of the few pieces of old Soviet tech that actually worked exceptionally well. It could track 200 targets at once, feeding targeting data to weapon systems across the entire northwest Black Sea. It was a formidable piece of engineering, but it was not designed to take a drone to the face. Sokil could see Russian personnel moving on the lower decks. Their body language was relaxed, unconcerned. The NEVA's antenna continued its rotation, each sweep a roll of the dice. But the drone's radar cross-section was tiny, no bigger than a large seabird, nearly invisible. 800 meters out, Sokil began his terminal approach. This is the deadly beauty of FPV warfare. It is not guided by GPS coordinates alone. The pilot makes real-time micro-adjustments right up to the final second.
Sokol had his aim point, the sweet spot, the junction where the radar antenna met its control unit. A strike there would maximize damage, destroying both mechanical and electronic systems. The NEVA installation grew larger and larger in his view. Soviet engineers had built it to withstand salt spray, storms, and electronic interference. They never envisioned a 3-kilogram explosive moving at 60 kilometers per hour. 200 meters. They finally saw it. Sokol could see them pointing, shouting, scrambling. It was far too late. The quadcopter was moving too fast. The range was too close. One technician fumbled for what looked like a rifle. He would have less than 10 seconds.
At 9:20 a.m., Sokol's FPV drone slammed into the NEVA radar's antenna assembly. The explosion was immediate and devastating. It wasn't a massive fireball by military standards. It was surgically precise. Fragments of aluminum, steel, and electronics erupted across the platform. The radar's delicate waveguide system, its electronic soul, was shredded. Its transmitter was obliterated. Its rotating antenna was completely severed from its housing. In one perfectly delivered blow, a drone that cost less than an annual Netflix subscription had blinded one of Russia's most powerful eyes. But as smoke billowed from the ruined radar, the first part of the mission was complete. The opening act was over. 80 kilometers away, a far more devastating weapon was already on its final approach. Cutting through the Black Sea swells was a drone called the Sea Baby. This was not an improvised weapon cobbled together in a workshop. This was Ukrainian maritime warfare at its most sophisticated. A 6-meter-long unmanned surface vessel purpose-built for one thing: total destruction. Hidden beneath its sleek, gray, unassuming exterior was nearly 1 ton of high explosives. 1,000 kilograms of military-grade ordnance, enough destructive power to level a city block. The warhead design was a masterpiece of explosive engineering. It wasn't a single crude charge. It was a cluster of multiple shaped charges arranged around the bow. This configuration was designed to create a sympathetic detonation effect. When the primary charge hit the target, it would trigger the secondary charges in a rapid sequence. This created a prolonged, multi-stage explosion that could demolish reinforced concrete and steel. The explosive mix of RDX and TNT would generate temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius. Against the Boyko Tower's support structures, it wouldn't just cause damage. It would create a sustained fireball designed to melt steel and turn concrete to powder. Propulsion came from twin 200-horsepower inboard motors driving powerful water jets. This system allowed the Sea Baby to hit a blistering 49 knots while maintaining a low, stealthy profile in the water. Its navigation was a fusion of GPS, inertial guidance, and real-time satellite communication. Human operators maintained ultimate control through encrypted links, allowing for last-second course corrections. The drone's design prioritized survival. Its low-profile hull kept it below most radar horizons. Its gray paint scheme made it nearly invisible against the choppy sea. And with the NEVA radar now a smoking wreck, the Russian forces on the platform were effectively blind to any surface threat. Their only detectors were their own eyes. But this Sea Baby was especially dangerous. Its target was stationary, and its structure was perfectly mapped. Ukrainian intelligence knew the platform's weak points. They knew where the storage facilities, living quarters, and critical support columns were located. They knew exactly where to strike to achieve maximum damage. At 9:15 a.m., the Sea Baby was 30 kilometers out and closing fast. Through its high-definition camera, SBU operators in a control room hundreds of kilometers away watched the platform grow on their screens. The black smoke rising from the destroyed radar served as a perfect beacon. Their mission was not to harass or disable. It was to ensure this platform could never again be used as a Russian military outpost. The drone's autopilot made hundreds of micro-corrections per second, maintaining a perfect course. At 0935, just 10 kilometers from the target, the Sea Baby activated its terminal guidance systems.
its electro-optical camera locked on to the platform's main support structure. Specifically, the junction between the drilling rig and the accommodation block where Russian personnel were housed. Destroying this single point would trigger a catastrophic cascading collapse. The drone's speed increased to its maximum velocity, 49 knots, over 90 kilometers per hour. The 6-meter-long vessel had become a 6-ton projectile, a guided torpedo carrying 1,000 kilograms of high explosives. The kinetic energy of the impact alone would be devastating. Combined with the warhead, it would be apocalyptic. On the platform, panic had erupted. Through the drone's camera, the operators could see figures running wildly across the decks. Some were grabbing rifles, others shouting into radios, trying to call for help that was over 100 kilometers away. Their actions were tragically futile. Their small arms were meant to repel human boarders, not a high-speed explosive drone. The Sea Baby was now less than 5 minutes from impact. It was too fast, too low, and too powerful to stop. 2 kilometers out, the final approach, no turning back.
1,000 kilograms of precisely engineered explosives were about to transform the Boyko Tower from a military outpost into a twisted memorial. At 0950 a.m., the Sea Baby drone struck the Boyko Tower's main support junction with the force of a freight train. The shaped charges detonated. The explosive energy was focused like a laser beam directly into the platform's structural supports. Engineers would call it catastrophic structural failure. A more accurate description would be blown to pieces. Within the first second, temperatures at the blast center exceeded 3,500 degrees Celsius. The massive steel framework holding the platform together didn't just break, it melted. The accommodation block, where personnel had sought shelter, simply disintegrated. Its walls and floors were vaporized by the sustained explosive burn. But the destruction was just beginning. With the main structural connections severed, the Boyko Tower began to fall apart in a horrifying, cascading collapse. Storage facilities, packed with equipment and supplies, ignited, adding fuel to the fire in massive secondary explosions. The platform's diesel fuel tanks began rupturing in sequence. Each detonation sent new towers of flame hundreds of meters into the air. A pillar of fire and smoke rose over 1,000 meters into the sky, a grim monument to the attack's brutal effectiveness. Within 5 minutes, the entire upper structure of the Boyko Tower had collapsed into the Black Sea. What had been a multi-level platform was now a mangled wreck of steel and concrete jutting from the water like the ribs of a dead leviathan. Where Russian soldiers had lived and worked, there was now only debris floating on an oil-slicked sea. A few survivors, trapped on the lower levels, clung to unstable wreckage, surrounded by fire with no hope of rescue. 2 hours later, satellite imagery confirmed the result. Where the Boyko Tower once stood as a symbol of Russian occupation, only burning wreckage remained. A forward surveillance post and logistics hub completely and utterly demolished. Erased from the map by 2 Ukrainian drones, which together cost less than a few thousand copies of a video game. A symbol of occupation, now a monument to its own destruction. This is Goba. Subscribe for real-time battlefield updates and strategic breakdowns.